Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Ryan and this is the review for Front Mission First Remake. Right out of the gates, huge thank you to Forever Entertainment for providing me with a review copy for this game. I am a very small channel and I really appreciate the opportunity. So, the Front Mission franchise has a bit of a storied and even troubled history, especially when you look outside of Japan. We didn't even see the first game in the franchise until the third installment, which was, I think, the fifth game in the series. The Front Mission series has primarily been a tactics RPG series in the same vein as games like Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre, but Front Mission swaps out the fantasy setting for a sci-fi one and swords and magic for mech parts and machine guns. However, from the second game in the series, Front Mission Gun Hazard, which, I have a video on this channel for, please go watch it, the series has been trying to branch out. Of the 12 or so games that have been released in the series, about a third of them have actually been other genres. The last two games of which we've seen in the West, Front Mission Evolved, which is kind of a mech shooter in the same vein as Armored Core, and Left Alive, which is a stealth action game trying to be kind of like Metal Gear Solid. Yes, that Left Alive, which when it was released, I had no idea was actually a Front Mission game. And I love Front Mission. Let me know in the comments down below if you knew it was a Front Mission game. That brings us to today. Front Mission fans have been wanting, waiting, and hoping for a return to form in the Front Mission series. Today we're finally getting that, albeit not in the form of a numbered sequel, but in the new game on offer from Forever Entertainment. Front Mission First Remake, out now on Nintendo Switch for $34.99, which is a remake of the original SNES game. And now we get to the actual review of the game. Front Mission First Remake, first and foremost, is an extremely faithful recreation of the original game. I feel the enemies behave in a way that they did in the original, and everything just kind of has that feel. First and foremost, the game looks really nice, and I really like the look of the mechs. Many people are going to say, and myself included, that nice graphics aren't really as impressive as they used to. And that's true to an extent, but when we're talking about a game that was first released on the SNES in 1995 and most recently was available on the Nintendo 3DS, it is nice to see the mechs in full 3D and looking as nice as they do. I also really like the sprite work that they did on the character portraits. At first, I kind of wanted them to have a more modern take on them, but I really liked that they stayed very faithful to the originals, and as I played, they really grew on me. They've also done a lot of good work with the camera. In the original, we had a fixed camera, as most games of the time did, but now we can pan, we can zoom in, we can zoom out, and we can even get a top-down view to get a better lay of the land during combat. The musical score has also been completely redone, and it sounds really good. It's not a huge departure from the original, which I really appreciate because I like the old soundtrack. This brings us to some of the negative points. While I really like the music of the game, some of the sound design options were kind of bizarre to me. While these might be a bit nitpicky, they really did stand out for me. First and foremost is the looping soundtrack. The tracks fade out at a point and then just restart, and I feel that's kind of an odd choice. Another example is going to be some of the sound effect choices. For example, in the first city mission, when one of the mechs bumps into a car, there's kind of a nice ambient thing where the car alarm starts going off, but it never stops going off, and I kind of found it really grating to finish the mission. The next issue I have has to do with some of the camera work. As an example of this, when your character is facing the enemy on the battlefield, say your character is on the right side of the screen and the enemy is on the left side of the screen, when the camera zooms in for the battle, the characters will actually swap sides, and this feels a little bit odd to me. Another thing that I wasn't really a big fan of is when your mech goes up or down terrain, the camera fixes on your mech and you kind of get this like bouncy feel. And I wasn't a big fan of that either. Lastly, to do with the camera is how fast the camera snaps to the next subject. And I don't know, it's a little bit too fast for me. And that coupled with the bounciness going up and down terrain, it just doesn't feel great. My last big issue is how some of the menu navigation just doesn't feel very good. It feels kind of clunky. For example, when you're on the overworld map and you want to go into a city, first you click on the city using the B button, and then you enter the city using the A button once the cursor is over it. Why not just press B again to confirm the action? I don't know, I just found it a little bit odd. Really, this all comes down to 2 points. Do I think this is a good remake, and would I recommend this to people? To the first point, do I think it is a good remake? The answer to that is yes, but. It's a good remake for a game that came out in 1995, but I don't know that it does quite enough to modernize it. Take, for example, Tactics Ogre, which recently had its remake. Tactics Ogre does a lot to help new players who might not be used to the brutal nature of old school tactics games. One example of this is how in the original game, when you're given your starting troops, they're all just soldiers, and you're kind of left to your own devices to decide what's going to be an effective army. This can be pretty intimidating as a new player. If you've never played that game or a tactics game before, you're probably going to have no idea. Whereas in the remake, they give you a very balanced army, but you do still have the option to create whatever army you see fit. Front Mission's answer to this problem is a difficulty option. While it isn't a bad option, it doesn't necessarily make you feel good about using it. While Tactics Ogre didn't necessarily hold your hand, this just feels like, okay, you're not good enough to play on the original version, here's a dumbed down version for you. To my final point, would I recommend this game to new people? Yes, I would. It is by far the best way to play a game that never saw a release in the West, and whose DS remake might be pretty difficult to find these days. While the difficulty of the original is quite brutal, it does give you an option to tone things down. For people who might not want the brutalness of the original, or for people who just want to experience the story. A lot of the issues that I listed might be rather nitpicky. The most important thing is the moment-to-moment gameplay. Does it do what it needs to do? Which is provide really fun, old-school tactics RPG gameplay. And I think it does that very, very well. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the first review that I've done on this channel, and I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Again, big thanks to Forever Entertainment for providing the review copy. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Don't forget to pound that like button into pudding, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.